Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Lethbridge police have charged a 52-year-old man in connection with a bomb threat on the city's south side on Tuesday. The final numbers are in from Operation Red Nose. The 26th annual fundraiser for the Lethbridge Pronghorns was another success. And a unique head count took place at the London Zoo, featuring some very special and endangered Sumatran tigers.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge police have charged a 52-year-old man with uttering threats. It's in connection with an incident where he threatened to detonate a bomb inside of a moving truck. Police responded to the incident on Tuesday afternoon along the 1000 block of 13th Street South after the business received a call about a bomb. Police searched the van and found no explosives. Now, upon further investigation, police say the male was a client of the business and demanded his property be delivered right away or he was going to blow up the van. Winston Wolfe of Lethbridge is charged with one count of uttering threats to cause bodily harm. He was released from custody and will appear in court on March the 22nd. Fort Macleod RCMP have laid charges in connection with a stabbing that took place on New Year's Day. Just before 4 a.m. on January the 1st, police arrived to find a man who had been stabbed numerous times at a residence in Fort Macleod. The man was first taken to Lethbridge Hospital, then transported to a Calgary hospital via Stars Air ambulance, where he remains in serious condition. 26-year-old Sterling Michael White of Fort Macleod has been charged with aggravated assault. White has been remanded into custody and will appear in court on January the 11th. The Lethbridge shelter is officially under new management. Operations were transferred over to the Blood Tribe Department of Health on Monday. Bill Ginther from the neighboring Lethbridge Soup Kitchen believes this was a pretty good move.
Most of our guests and their clients are Indigenous, so this makes sense. You have Indigenous people working with Indigenous people. Not to say that we should focus on that, because that's wrong as well. But I think they will have their hands very full. The downside is that Alpha House, who did the operation of the shelter for the last 3 years, did everything they could to make them unsuccessful. They left an empty building. They didn't allow them in the building. They stripped the building. And so that's the hard part. I'm very optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Bridge City News did reach out to Alpha House for comment. They said in a statement they consider it a privilege to have been able to provide client care for the past 3 years and wish the Blood Tribe Department of Health every success in their new role. You know, there's more help available for those who are battling addictions in both Lethbridge and Calgary. Tony Kokol is the operations manager for Fresh Start Recovery in Lethbridge. He says what makes their programs unique is that they're all-encompassing in helping someone get their life back on track.
We believe in forward movement more than just the drugs or alcohol. That's a given. Every treatment center will get you make forward movement with the drugs and alcohol. We believe recovery in all areas of our life, and we'll set goals such as employment or legal or housing or cultural or spiritual, and it's in those categories, those major life areas, we will sit with the individual and they will derive the goals that they want to move forward with.
Tony Kokol from Fresh Start Recovery will also discuss what their success rate has been with their clients who graduate from their program. Watch for the full interview coming up in the second half of our program. Recent reports say the doctor shortage we're experiencing in Canada is only expected to get worse. Stats say our country will face a deficit of 44,000 physicians by the year 2028. But according to a pediatric surgeon from the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, internationally trained doctors such as himself are an untapped market that can help minimize the shortage.
I'm from Toronto, but I trained internationally abroad in Grenada. And I did my adult general surgery residency in New York City before returning back home to Toronto at the Hospital for Sick Children to complete fellowship. And so I think that an untapped resource are Canadians who study abroad. At my own institution, over 1,600 of our graduates are Canadians who have gone abroad for their education, and upwards of 3/4 of them are currently within primary care.
Dr. Josh Ramgist will also share the pathway doctors from other countries must take in order to start practicing here in Canada. That informative interview with BCN's Naveen Day is coming up later in our broadcast. A well-known Canadian psychologist says he must take mandatory social media retraining or he could lose his license. In a tweet, Dr. Jordan Peterson says the mandatory order is coming down from the Ontario College of Psychologists. Peterson says he must take the retraining with the college's experts. He says it's in reaction to his retweeting Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and criticizing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau along with his political allies. Peterson says he's been accused of harming people. Now, he says that none of the complaints the college received were for current or past clients of his or even acquainted with any of his clients. According to the Daily Wire, the complaints against Peterson include criticizing former principal secretary to the Prime Minister, Gerald Butts, and voicing his opposition to plans made by Ottawa Police during the Freedom Convoy. As we reported on Bridge City News, the pay for Canada's top CEOs smashed previous records with the money they earned back in 2021. According to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, CEOs made 243 times what the average Canadian worker made, or around $14.3 million a year. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says that is simply unacceptable.
This is a problem. It's particularly a problem given that we're dealing with a cost of living crisis and an inflation without precedent in recent history. And as people are having a hard time with everything, basic necessities, buying groceries, paying their bills, they're feeling squeezed, and the real salaries of workers has gone down. The wealthiest CEOs in this country have seen an increase in their wages by over 20%. They're making massive amounts of money, and it shows that in this time of inflation and this crisis of cost of living, that it's working out very well for those at the very top, and it's hurting workers, it's hurting families, it's hurting people.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is among those who took part in Canada's very first National Ribbon Skirt Day. The event is inspired by a young Indigenous girl who was shamed for wearing a ribbon skirt to a school in Saskatchewan. The colorful garment is worn by Indigenous women at cultural events, showing off both their culture and heritage. But when Isabella Kulak wore hers as part of a school formal day, her family says a staff member at the school told her it was not formal enough. A funeral procession and service was held on Wednesday for fallen OPP Constable Greg Pirshala. The police officer was killed in the line of duty on December the 27th. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says Greg was a remarkable young man.
From a young age, he made a lasting impression on everyone he met. Greg was a role model through and through. And as an officer, Greg made the same positive impressions with his fellow members of the Ontario Provincial Police. Those who worked alongside him called him exemplary. His brothers and sisters in uniform knew he was rock solid. They knew he could be relied on when it mattered most. And as we've heard over the last few days, Greg was living his dream of being a police officer.
Well, it was another remarkable day here in Lethbridge as we hovered around the freezing mark once again. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, even though we're well into winter, it'll feel more like spring later this week.
Yeah, and it actually felt almost spring-like today, too, when I went out earlier, Hal. It was just lovely, and we are going to see much more of that as the temperatures soar into the pluses later this week. We just have to get through this one minus day that's creeping up on us on Thursday, and at -4, we're still in good shape for this time of year because that's still within the seasonal range, actually even a little bit on the high side. So doing very well for the first week of January into this evening, looking at an overnight low of -14. And then, of course, Thursday, there's that -4. We're looking at a 15K wind as well, making it feel a little bit nippier, more like about -10 with that wind chill. And then after that, it's just going to get warmer. I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. The Shoes for Kids campaign was started as a way to provide new pairs of shoes for children in our community whose families are struggling. The initiative has since expanded to include all-year access for students who are in dire need of some much-needed footwear. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, officials from the nonprofit highlighted the expansion, including the upcoming Shoes for Kids night at the Lethbridge Hurricanes game on January the 7th.
Our growth has doubled from last year, and our need is growing.
Volunteers from the Shoes for Kids organization will be at the Lethbridge Hurricanes game on Saturday night as the club takes on the Edmonton Oil Kings. The group is asking for brand new shoes for kids in kindergarten to grade 12, as well as cash donations that will be used to purchase footwear for children in Lethbridge and southern Alberta.
Our first year started with Lethbridge Public School District and then moved also with Holy Spirit. And then this year we have also expanded out to Palliser School Division. We have also served children in Begunny as well as Standoff as well. We've gone all the way out as far as Pincher Creek, and we just know that the way that our team has been able to connect with all of Southwest Alberta, whether that's law enforcement and or other school districts, is we are very optimistic that we are going to even hit more districts moving forward as well, which means we're going to have more kids in need.
The group explained the ever-expanding growth of the campaign and compared the number of shoes given out in 2022 to what they are hoping to distribute out in 2023.
We have given out over 330 pairs of shoes within the Lethbridge area. On both reserves, it's well over 400 pairs of shoes. So we're sitting at about 750 pairs of shoes within the Southwest region. We're looking to doubling those numbers within 2023.
The nonprofit is run by 5 volunteers, and they're hoping to fill even more of these positions quite soon.
We're going to need a team of at least 10.
Officials from the Lethbridge Hurricanes say it's vital to partner with local organizations like Shoes for Kids to make sure as many sneakers as possible can be given out with care.
It's very important to us, just kind of bringing to light and highlighting something that maybe a lot of us might possibly be taking for granted that others might not be so fortunate to have.
The Canes game will start at 7 p.m. on January 7th, and you can look out for Shoes for Kids volunteers when you head inside the NMAX Centre. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Operation Red Nose has wrapped up their campaign. It provided more than 26,000 rides home across Canada, including 606 here in Alberta. The initiative offers safe rides home for those who went out for a night on the town during the busy Christmas holiday season. According to coordinator Kathy Hong, the campaign was a huge success.
We were able to provide 517 rides this holiday season. For us, that was 8 nights throughout the course of December. We drove just over 10,000 kilometers. We raised just under $15,000 in donations from the rides alone that will be donated to the U of L Pronghorn Athletics programs. There was some additional sponsorship dollars that does bring the overall financials higher. We just don't have that final count yet.
The Operation Red Nose campaign has been running in Lethbridge for 26 years, and plans are in place to bring it back again next holiday season. Well, some final numbers are in from the Christmas Hope campaign. The Interfaith Food Bank Society of Lethbridge says collectively the initiative was to serve over 5,000 kids and 3,000 adults during the Christmas holiday season. Instead, they ended up serving 6,300 kids and over 3,200 adults.
So that just speaks to the volume of need in the community. We do expect that to continue, but again, are so grateful that the community helped us to get it all taken care of. It was a crazy year. We were definitely expecting an increase in the number of people that we were serving, just not quite as many as we did see come through. So it was a very busy year. We did have some shortages and some emergency calls out to the community, but ultimately everyone who asked for help was able to get it this Christmas.
McIntyre says they had a 40% increase in the number of hampers that went out to households over the holidays. There was also a 47% increase in the number of people who received the hampers. South of the border, U.S. President Joe Biden says Republicans' inability to unify behind a candidate for House of Speaker is simply embarrassing. Biden says the rest of the world is looking at the chaotic scenes on the floor of the House of the Representatives. Most Republicans' choice candidate for the job failed to win the required majority on 3 ballots on Tuesday. It's the first time in 100 years that a speaker has not been selected on the first ballot. Buffalo Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin remains in Cincinnati Hospital after suffering cardiac arrest during a game against the Bengals on Monday night. Hamlin collapsed on the field during a tackle he made. Now, fans in Cincinnati left candles and a sign outside of the UC Medical Center where Hamlin remains in critical condition.
It was just a big shock. Like, it was just a big silence. Like, no one knew what to do. We expect the best, but, and it's just heartbreaking to even hear what happened.
You are here working in this place. I worship you. We're gonna have Kyle Rance, one of our teaching pastors.
We don't know who God's gonna answer, so we're just gonna go for it. And that's what I came here to do. Like, I don't know if what I'm gonna say is gonna make a difference, but I'm gonna give it all I've got. If I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go down swinging for this guy because he deserves it.
Crew members aboard the cruise ship Celebrity Beyond rescued 19 Cuban migrants from a crowded boat on Monday. Crew members aboard another ship, Carnival Celebration, then spotted 5 other people in distress on a small vessel located around 40 kilometers northwest of Cuba. Officials say a surge of Cuban maritime migration is bringing hundreds of new arrivals to the Florida Keys, and up to 160 or more are intercepted at sea each day in the Straits of Florida, often in dire circumstances. Staff at a London zoo are busy with their annual head count of the park's animals. That includes a number of penguins and 2 critically endangered Sumatran tiger cubs.
I think probably the highlight of the counts today was the keepers counting more than 70 Humboldt penguins. Quite difficult to count because so many animals, and the keepers are using some different tricks like using some fish to encourage the animals over, and today even a laser pen was being used and the penguins are following the light of the pen, and it was possible for the keepers to move animals into different areas, and the penguins loved it as well, which was really important. But we've also had some really successful breeding here, including 2 Sumatran tiger cubs, critically endangered. And in fact, Sumatran tigers are one of the most endangered species of animals that you'll see in London Zoo today. Just a few hundred Sumatran tigers left in the wild, and a really good example of a breeding program that's helping towards making sure that there's always a safe, long-term, sustainable population of, in this case, Sumatran tigers somewhere on the planet.
I couldn't imagine how much those tigers eat, and with the cost of food today, wow. Well, it's felt like wow outside with the spring weather we've been receiving so far, instead of winter here in southwestern Alberta, and those milder temperatures will be sticking around. Full weather details are on deck. You don't think my back has officially recovered from all of the snow shoveling it did over the Christmas holidays? Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details for our region. Jeanette, it's safe to say that I can maybe keep that shovel tucked away in storage, at least for what, the rest of the week?
Well, Hal, we are not expecting any more snow this week, so you might as well throw that shovel away, at least for now. It looks like we actually could get a bit of a meltdown this week, as well as you look forward to these temperatures here. Okay, so we got to get through the -4 day. That is tomorrow, Thursday, with that 15K wind. It's going to make it feel quite a bit colder, more like -10 with that wind chill. But then as we get into Friday and Saturday and into next week, we're looking at temperatures of 7 degrees and lots of sunshine for Friday and Saturday. Into Sunday, 5 degrees the high, and then back up to Sunday, back up to 7 rather for Monday, and then 5 degrees on Tuesday. So it looks like we're having a little meltdown coming our way. Could be a Chinook even. Average high for this time of year, -2. Average low, -14. 16 was our high temperature on this day back in 1984. And in 1965, we had the chilliest, which was -33. 8:28, that's when the sun rose this morning, and our sun set this evening at 4:44 p.m. Already the days are getting longer. We now have 8 hours and 16 minutes of daylight. Okay, it's going to be a windy one tomorrow on the west coast, in the Juan de Fuca Strait, particularly looking up to 70K winds. Periods of rain in Victoria, actually 60% chance there. 11 the high, 10 the high in Vancouver. Could see up to 80K winds on the coast with periods of rain as well. -3 the high in Edmonton and -5 in Calgary. Both of those cities looking fairly sunny. Going to be feeling a little bit of wind chill as well. -11 the high in Saskatoon tomorrow, -13 in Regina, and -10 in Winnipeg. All 3 of those prairie cities looking at fog patches dissipating by noon, and then a 15K wind, making it feel a little bit chillier as well. Toronto looking at periods of rain and snow, 3 degrees the high there. 1 the high in Ottawa, looking at a freezing rain warning. Could get some freezing rain with ice pellets. Same thing for Montreal, looking at ice pellets mixed with some snow there. Lots of precipitation as well on part of the east coast here. -5 the high in Fredericton tomorrow. Looking at 2 centimeters of snow, 2 to 4 centimeters in Halifax expected, -3 the high there, -4 in Charlottetown tomorrow with mainly overcast skies. And beautiful sunshine expected in St. John's with -6 for the high tomorrow. There you go. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
British Columbia has become the first province in Canada to require a 3-day waiting period for buyers after they've signed an agreement to purchase a home. The new home buyer protection period is designed to give purchasers more time for financing or home inspections after a deal has been accepted. Analysts say having this protection in place is important for the next time the market heats up. They say, however, that the situation should be monitored for a potential power imbalance that could be a disadvantage to sellers. The government says the program also includes a cancellation fee of $250 for every $100,000 of a home's purchase price to convince buyers and sellers to take the transaction seriously. Salesforce is laying off around 10% of its workforce in the latest round of job cuts in the tech industry as corporations cut back on software and other spending. The San Francisco cloud computing software company will also be closing some offices. Salesforce employs around 80,000 people. Tech companies hired aggressively during the pandemic to keep up with soaring demand, but Salesforce has been growing rapidly since 2018. Company officials say its workforce more than doubled between then and 2021. Irish regulators have hit Facebook parent Meta with hundreds of millions in fines. It stems from alleged online privacy violations, and the company is also banned from forcing European users to agree to personalized ads based on their online activity. Ireland's Data Protection Commission imposed 2 fines totaling €390 million. Its decision on the 2 cases could shake up Meta's business model, targeting users and ads based on what they do online. It's the Commission's latest punishment for Meta for data privacy infringements, following 4 other fines for the company since 2021, totaling more than €900 million. Tech companies of all sizes are in Las Vegas, Nevada, showing off their products at CES, formerly known as the Consumer Electronics Show. It's getting back to normal after going virtual in 2021 and experiencing a major drop in 2022 attendance due to the pandemic.
The rise of the Omicron variant that caused many companies to cancel. And then this year we're back in full force in person back at CES. Really the first time for many since 2020 at the start of the pandemic. We're set to have a phenomenal CES. We're looking at well over 2 million net square feet. It's about 70% bigger than it was last year. We've got over 1,000 startups here at CES showing what they're bringing into the world. And on top of that, we have thousands of additional companies that are coming here to talk about the solutions they're bringing into the market.
Now, some of the highlights for this year's show so far include an AI-connected bird feeder, electric inline skates, and temporary digital tattoos. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 145 points on the day to finish at 19,588. The Dow was up 133 points to 33,269. The S&P 500 was up 28 on the day to 3852, and the Nasdaq was up 71 points to 10,458. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 374 to 73.19 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 16 cents to 4.15 US. Gold was up 15.01 to 18.54.49 US an ounce, and silver was even at 23.76 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.11 per bushel, barley's at $9.65, canola's at $19.70, and corn is at $11.27 per bushel. Live cattle February contract was up 43 cents to 157.28. Feeder cattle January contract was up 2.53 to 185.23, and lean hogs February contract was down $1 to 84.08. The Canadian dollar was up a cent over the past 24 hours to 74.20 US. Recapping one of our top stories, some final numbers are in from the Christmas Hope campaign. The Interfaith Food Bank Society of Lethbridge says collectively, the initiative was projected to serve over 5,000 kids and 3,000 adults during the busy Christmas season, but instead, they ended up serving 6,300 children and over 3,200 adults. Officials say there was also a 40% increase in the number of hampers that went out to households over the holidays. If you know somebody who's battling addictions issues, make sure they watch this informative interview next. Tony Kokol, Operations Manager with Fresh Start Recovery, discusses the help they offer to turn Albertans' lives around. That interview is on deck. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. The Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization is looking for volunteers to take part in their Drive Happiness program. This program is to help seniors in our community who are facing extreme loneliness due to lack of accessible transportation. Volunteers drive clients to their medical appointments, pick up groceries, and take them to important life activities. If you're interested in this opportunity and for more information, visit lethseniors.com/volunteer drivers. Do you have a heart to serve our community? Streets Alive Mission is looking for volunteers to help make sandwiches, sort incoming donations, assist with Foot Friday, and many other opportunities to serve, receive training, and to provide support for this important cause of bringing hope to the hopeless. Visit streetsalive.ca to fill out their volunteer application or call 403-320-1159. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Many of us know someone who is struggling with some sort of addiction that's negatively impacting that life, and very likely the lives of many other family members. Now, one of the recovery programs that's been having a lot of success is a center right here in Lethbridge. It's called the Fresh Start Recovery Center, and we're pleased to be joined by the group's operations manager, Tony Kokol. Tony, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you.
Now, what is Fresh Start Recovery really all about? What is it that you guys offer?
Fresh Start Recovery is, we have two centers, one in Calgary, one here in Lethbridge. We have a 30-year history, and what we are is a long-term residential men and women's treatment center. We primarily deal with drugs and alcohol. We have a 14 to 16 program.
So who do you think really should be coming to your center for help, not just here, but in Calgary as well?
Everyone that's affected, every adult. We are an adult-based center, and every adult that deals with drugs or alcohol is more than welcome at our center.
You know, Tony, there are many recovery programs across the country. What really sets yours apart from other programs?
I think it's our culture. It's our culture that we've created over 3 decades of, and it's one of compassion and empathy and understanding. We come to the table with lived experience which allows us to understand, I think, at a deeper level, but we also come to the table with academia, with knowledge of many modalities of treatment. And we do a very comprehensive assessment when the individual arises and try to deliver a client-based service for that individual's needs.
Now, obviously, you have programs to help different persons' individual needs. What about First Nations cultures? How can you really be sensitive to their needs too?
Well, being cognizant of their needs first, it's a sense of awareness of what their needs are, and their where they come from, and who we have as a client, you know. And again, it's very client-centered. When an individual comes, what we'll do is we've broken up the recovery process into 12 major life areas, and we'll set goals in those major life areas. We believe in forward movement, more than just the drugs or alcohol. That's a given. Every treatment center will get you make forward movement with the drugs and alcohol. We believe recovery in all areas of our life, and we'll set goals such as employment or legal or housing or cultural or spiritual. And it's in those categories, those major life areas, we will sit with the individual and they will derive and they will derive the goals that they want to move forward with. And this is where our team will sit with the individual and assist that individual on moving forward with the goals that they see fit and that will complement their recovery. So it's very much what the individual wants. We will cater to their needs and assist them to reconnect with their culture or their religion or whatever they deem fit for their well-being.
Now, Tony, you battled addictions yourself, and you know firsthand about the challenges and struggles of battling those addictions. Can you share a bit about your story and your journey?
Yes, I'm an alumni of the center myself. Back in 2008, I came through the center. I was myself wrapped up into the drug culture for 3-4 years prior to cleaning up. I was homeless. I used to work in the oil field. I was very successful. I was a tool pusher, a rig manager on a rig for close to 12 years. I consulted, and my drug use ultimately led me to homelessness and to loss of everything that was actually dear to me. Everything that was dear to me, I ended up losing. And I ended up in prison and ended up at the doors of Fresh Start and found a place that accepted me when no one else would and was willing to work with me and get me back on track, get me back to a point where I had the confidence and the support to transition back into the community. And I'm very passionate about the program because I know it works. It's an easy sell for me because I've seen it, I've lived it, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people embrace this program and be able to go back into the community, be able to go back to their family, be able to step back into those roles of father, of son, of mother, of sister.
Everybody has a different rock bottom in their lives before they decide, you know what, I need to seek help and reach out to somebody because I want to turn my life around. Was prison the rock bottom for you?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was profound for me. It was only until I was there that I realized the tragedies that occurred in my life and the things that I've done to the people around me. It was that time of sitting at that bottom, and I didn't get to escape it. I didn't get to move forward. I had to sit in there and sitting in that place of solitude and incarceration made me. I was forced to look at what I did to the people around me, and the realization that I was alone, realization that I ended up in a place where society put me that, they didn't want me back, and that was a huge eye opener where I was faced with either embracing that lifestyle or moving forward and getting back into the stream of life, and I chose life, and thank God that there is agencies and supports out in the community that can assist an individual to move forward if they're willing to do that.
What happened with your friends and family? Did many people abandon you, or did they stick by your side through the whole process?
No, at the end of it, by the time I cleaned up, I was 46 or 47, and the nature of addiction is very self-centered. It's I heard a phrase once is it's not a spectator sport. The whole family gets to play, and because it's such a self-centered disease, I broke a lot of hearts, and I abused a lot of relationships, and I lied, I cheated, I stole, I did these things, and a lot of the friends just had to walk away. It was intolerable behavior, and my family, they had to turn their backs too. basically to protect themselves, and I ended up at a place where all alone. I think with the family it was more tough love. I think with friends, a lot of them were just fed up, and I know that is because 15 years later, these relationships are back in my life, and I've been able to speak with my family members and friends and talk about what they experienced during that time, and I don't blame them whatsoever. I think they were more tolerable than I probably would have been. It's how do you watch someone that you love slowly kill themselves and throw away their lives without being affected?
Now, at Fresh Start Recovery, there's a family healing program for clients. Tony, how does that work?
Yeah, that's correct. We have a family healing program. It's not only for our clients; it's more directed to the parents, or to the children, or to the wives, or to the husbands. So it is a family disease, and everybody gets affected. And one of the family members will take blame, or they won't know how to deal with it, or they'll enable. And what the family healing program does is allow the family members to heal as well. It's great in that sense that the whole family as a unit has to heal to get well. As the addict is on his journey, and as he takes that road and slowly descends, the family feels that, and they have a tendency to embrace certain behaviors. And the program, family healing program, will gently taps the family individuals on the shoulders and puts forth to them some of these traits that they may have been embracing, and some of their thinking that may be incorrect, and to set them on a healthy place where they're still supportive, but they're not blaming or they're not enabling the client, and allows them to take care of themselves and to get well.
So, Tony, from your experience, how much of a part does our spiritual and our physical health really play in recovery?
It's huge. It's huge. One of the premises of treatment, of recovery, is that they'll break it up, just to simplify it, they'll break it up into 4 areas of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So if that's 100%, each of those categories own 25%. However, the spiritual component is at the center of that, of those percentages, and everything revolves around that. And it's the spirit inside of us. That spirit is we need to take care of. And is that spirit inside of the individual? Is it confident? Is it full of love? Is it empathetic? Is it caring? Is it confident? Or is it blaming? Is it insecure? Is it broken? Is it traumatized? And that spiritual piece also is connecting to something greater than us. Whether that's family, whether that's God, whether that's our creator, that's left up to the individual. But it's connecting to something to rely on and for support and for influence. We need those positive influences back in our lives. We need the mentors, the sponsors, good, positive, loving influences. And that's really a huge premise of recovery, is to reach out and to find good, positive influence, loving influences, to nurture that spirit within ourselves, and that ability, that spirituality, where, because the disease is so self-centered, we get so wrapped up about ourselves, we turn our backs on those that we love and the community and our friends. And that spirituality is being able to connect and be in tune with those around us, and starting to become cognizant of their behaviors and how we affect them, and making those around us a priority, and realizing that it's very important, the thoughts and the feelings of everybody around us.
So what has your success rate been like with clients who beat their addictions? How often do people maybe backslide and go back to their old way of living?
Well, that's a hard question. You know, we have a group completion, people that come to our center and complete. We're around 75, 80%. But you can't even quote me on that. I don't know the exact stat. We do reporting monthly and quarterly, and of course those numbers will change too. So I can't give you an exact, but it's about 75 to 80%. And then, you know, there's also, it depends on the measurement, right? And it depends on the amount of people. So I know, you know, if we were to go for a year, or do we go to 5 months? And the measurement itself, I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I mean, if we're only looking at 2 people and 1 fail, my measurement would be 50%. But I'm looking, you know, what are the stats we're pulling from? I can tell you that our measurement, I'd be safe to be pretty accurate in saying that the people that come through our program and complete our 16-week program, we have a 70 to 80% success rate.
That's great, Tony. We only have a few short moments left here, but I wanted to ask you, how should someone go about applying to join the program?
They would just phone. They would just have to Google Fresh Start Recovery Center, look on that site, and get the phone number, phone the center, do an over-the-phone intake. From there, our client support workers will meet with them over the phone, gather their information, and from there, we just ask them to call in to keep in touch. They get put on a wait list, and we'll bring them in when the time is right and when the bed is available.
Tony Kokol is the operations manager at Fresh Start Recovery Center, based here in Lethbridge and in Calgary. Tony, thanks so much for joining us today from Lethbridge.
Thank you, sir.
The doctor is out. At least that's the way it appears to be, as many Albertans scramble to find a physician due to a doctor shortage. And according to a recent report by the Royal Bank of Canada, our country will face a deficit of 44,000 doctors by the year 2028. The report also shows that approximately 6 million Canadians are already lacking access to a family doctor, which is a 30% jump since 2019. To talk more about this issue and some possible solutions, I am joined with Dr. Josh Ramgist. He is a pediatric surgeon at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. Dr. Ramgist, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise. Now, Josh, can you tell us, what have you experienced firsthand with these shortages in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I think here in Toronto, we're experiencing what Canadians really across the country are experiencing. It's difficulty with access. It's hard for families, be it adults or children, to be able to see their primary care physician. And as a result, it's even more difficult to access subspecialty services. And that's primarily because it's like the report showed, we don't have enough doctors.
Now, growing up as a child, my peers wanted to become police officers, firefighters, rock stars, and of course, doctors. And so it seems like there should be many Canadians lining up for their chance to pursue their dreams in healthcare. So where's the bottleneck? Is the issue with our post-secondary education, or has interest in the fields just simply diminished?
No, I don't think interest has diminished. I actually think it's higher than ever. The pandemic has really shown the need, and it's shown a big spotlight on that people want to be in healthcare and they want to be on the quote unquote front line taking care of their fellow citizens. I think our bottleneck is really at the post-secondary level. There are plenty of students, plenty of individuals who want to become physicians, but it's so hyper competitive, be it in Alberta or in other provinces, that there's really a bottleneck there of people trying to get into medical school.
Now, here in Alberta, our per capita spending on healthcare is among the highest in Canada. Yet the pressure is put on Albertans to find new physicians as doctors leave the province or retire, and that's felt hard here. What is causing the shortage in Alberta?
Well, I think what it comes down to is a structural imbalance where there are physicians, but they're not in rural areas or they're not in areas where there's the greatest need. And so there needs to be a little bit more equity. And while there are certain programs that are in place that are designed to try to help get more physicians to those areas of need, they simply aren't effective. And so I think what really needs to happen is there needs to be more recruitment of physicians who want to work in either underserved, rural, or just areas that need family physicians.
Now, I know recently our government has been trying to headhunt physicians, even from Ontario, to bring them to Alberta. But generally, doctor, is our healthcare dollars reaching the physicians, or is it getting eaten up in administrative?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of it's coming to the physicians or even to the healthcare overhead. I think there is, unfortunately, a lot of bureaucracy that exists within healthcare, and that certainly requires a little bit of nimbleness in order to be able to navigate that effectively. But at the end of the day, I think what a lot of Canadians and Albertans want to see is that their healthcare spending goes directly towards patient benefit.
Now, you spoke earlier about how you've personally experienced these shortages, but you also have a solution to the problem. You say that internationally trained doctors, such as yourself, can play a role in addressing the crisis. Tell us more about that and why this is a practical solution.
Sure. Again, this is something that I feel firsthand. I'm from Toronto, but I trained internationally abroad in Grenada. And I did my adult general surgery residency in New York City before returning back home to Toronto at the Hospital for Sick Children to complete fellowship. And so I think that an untapped resource are Canadians who study abroad. At my own institution, over 1,600 of our graduates are Canadians who have gone abroad for their education, and upwards of 3/4 of them are currently within primary care.
Now, for some people, they prefer a holistic approach to their health care. Do you think we need to switch to an Eastern medicine philosophy, or maybe a balance of both? And would this help our healthcare situation in Alberta or even across Canada?
I think it's an important adjunct, and I think incorporation of Eastern medicine is going to be necessary. But fundamentally, we are looking for allopathic healthcare, which is the standard globally, and that's what most patients have come to expect and deserve.
And what are the obstacles or objections heard from healthcare systems or governments when the solution is suggested to bring in workers from other countries?
I think what it comes down to is standards of care. And I believe that Albertans and Canadians deserve a high level of care, which they have come used to, which is what they deserve. And so I think it's important that whoever is brought in, wherever they've trained, that they meet what the Canadian standard of care is. And that can be both through testing or through practice experience programs, so that once they are at the bedside and once they're actually taking care of patients, they are delivering the high quality healthcare that Canadians expect to receive.
And I know, like, my family, part of my family comes from India. There's a lot of people in India wanting to pursue a career in healthcare, wanting to become doctors or some type of medical professional. What would you suggest as a career path for someone trained in India that wants to come to Canada?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think the routes to practicing in Canada, it's really about being able to complete residency, which is specialty training in a given area. And so it is competitive to become a resident or to receive ongoing training in Canada. In America, there's plenty of opportunities simply because there are more spots. And so that may be one of those avenues where obtaining residency training in America creates the opportunity to come to Canada afterwards, similar to the pathway that I've taken.
And what are the obstacles or objections heard from healthcare systems or governments when the solution to bring in international workers is suggested?
Well, I think, again, part of the goal is to, like I've said, ensure that there's appropriate standards of care. And then it's also to ensure that the staffing demands meet the population demands. And this is, again, to talk about the structural imbalance. It is not helping anyone if we bring in more physicians and they practice where there are already physicians. We need to see that new physicians are practicing where the need is the greatest.
And it's been said that under Alberta's existing healthcare system, patients are seen as a cost. Now, if Alberta Health Services had a voucher system, could this be better not just for the patient outcomes, but also for the health of Alberta's health system?
Well, I think what's important to remember is that Canadians take a lot of pride in their healthcare system, and we as
Absolutely.
Canadians want to be felt that we are providing the same standard of care to our neighbors as we would want for ourselves. And I think that any system that creates a tiered system or that allows somebody to jump a queue is not going to be well received because fundamentally we believe in equal access for all. And so I think it's important that any new systems still allow the same equity of access.
And are there specific countries that Canada should look to when recruiting more physicians? I know I referred to India, but I was just referring to, like my family comes from there. But what specific countries should Canada be looking at if they're looking for more physicians?
Well, I think the obvious one is America. They're just south of the border, and the standards of care that are expected of an American physician are very similar to that of a Canadian. And there are plenty of Canadians who are currently in America. And so creating opportunities for them to be able to return home, to be able to take care of their fellow citizen, I think those will be met well. And that'll certainly help start to meet that demand which RBC has shown.
Now, we talked about someone wanting to pursue a career in healthcare in Canada, coming to Canada, and we talked about a career path where they go to America first, and then they come to Canada. Now, if a physician is already practicing in another country, and he or she decides that they want to move to Canada and start practicing here, what testing or additional learning must be completed so they can be licensed here and have confidence in our healthcare system and working here?
Right. So every province has their own standard pathway for internationally trained graduates to be able to return. And so it can vary from province to province. And I think that that's one of the early areas of opportunity. The opportunity for a national licensure body would ameliorate it being at a provincial level. That way, there's opportunity for a flow of physicians across Canada. I think that the next step is going to be in terms of subspecialty training, given in primary care or in surgery, such as myself, where it's important that the standards of training match that of Canada. And it may be required that that individual has to repeat some of those years in order to be able to pass the Royal College examinations or to be eligible for those exams in their given specialty. So I really think in terms of a streamlined pathway, one, there is the medical license that the individual would have to obtain, and that's through passing Canadian board examinations. And then two, it will be subspecialty certification, which is going to be based on pre-existing training or the need for additional training.
And how long would all that take?
Well, it varies depending on specialty. Right now, after completing medical school to become a family doctor, there's 2 years of additional training. For most, say, general surgery programs, that can be anywhere from 5 to 7 additional years of training after medical school.
And is there anything else that you want to add? Any final thoughts on this subject, Doctor?
Well, I think that what's important to realize is that this is a problem that we are now seeing really at the forefront, and the pandemic has exposed a lot of our deficiencies in healthcare. I think it's important that new strategies are coming out to where Canadians who want to be able to become physicians have the opportunity, be it abroad or those who already are trained and want to return to Canada, have pathways and programs in place to help them return to be able to take care of their fellow Canadian.
Now, I know you referred to the pandemic, but this year, like even post-pandemic, there's still a lot of hospitalizations, especially with children, when it comes to influenza and RSV. Do you feel that flus and sicknesses are becoming more advanced, and this is just going to further up the demand for doctors in Canada?
So I do. I think that what the pandemic has shown is that it's shown our communities are susceptible and there's a heightened sense of awareness. And parents fundamentally want to be able to provide care for their children and ensure that they're well cared for. And so I think that we may have a little bit of immune naivety simply because we were in lockdown for 2 years. And so now, as people start to return back to their daily activities, they are more exposed to one another. That's certainly a possibility. But I think we also have a heightened sense of awareness and of the severity of influenza or RSV. And so parents and kids are being much more proactive in seeking out care that they required.
So you're saying that that the lockdown actually made our immune systems more frail in that regard.
True, but I also think it made us more savvy. I think that we're a little bit more in tune with it. And that's important. I mean, fundamentally, if you're sick, you need to be able to seek care. And if you're seeking care, you need a physician.
Absolutely, and I know a lot of people were concerned during the lockdown that, well, am I going to get my vitamin D, but I won't be in the sunlight as much, and so there was a lot of concern about that. People were, I remember, like at one time I was going shopping and I couldn't find vitamin D in the store, or like I couldn't find certain vitamins because people were just buying them up along with toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Well, health literacy is one of those things that doesn't get taught in school. And unfortunately, it takes these jarring experiences to make us more used to it. And so, again, if we want to try to find silver linings in what was a pretty grave pandemic, the fact that everyone is more health conscious, I think, is good. I think that we're going to see trickle down effects in other areas of preventative care, which is really important.
So what do you feel needs to change in our educational system to promote more health literacy? Will we need to add something in our K-12 curriculum?
Well, I think that being able to have that conversation about what does it mean to be sick and how do we start to care for one another, I think that that's important. I think that, when I think about what did I learn in biology, sometimes it can seem a little bit more abstract than thinking about our own personal health. But being conscious of the world that we live in and the way that diseases are spread is an important part of any biology program. And that can start as young as in the K program as well, where we just talk about germs and why do we need to wash hands and why is that important. So it's simple things that can be integrated early on.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, Dr. Ramjes, but we really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thanks. It was a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. Dr. Ramjes is an internationally trained pediatric surgeon at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. I'm Naveen Day, and on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.